So we've got a bit of a different kind of video here. What you're watching is footage of me yesterday creating this kind of weird box with trees coming out of it, and this isn't so much of a tutorial but kind of a way for me to upkeep content on the channel without having to churn out tutorials constantly, because they're quite demanding and I don't want to do them so much that I'm kind of washing myself out. So I thought I would kind of start making art process videos of recording me making a render from scratch, because I think when it comes to tutorials there's still a level of inhumanity to them. You're watching me create something and I've rehearsed it, I know the parameters, I know where things are going. You're not actually watching me as an artist operate, and I'm very much an artist. I think in this industry especially there's a lot of people that are probably more academics than they are artists, and at my fundamental core I'm an artist, and I think it's a good way for me to be more articulate too, because when I'm making a render it's hard for me to enunciate properly and say what I want to, and you often notice that in the intros I'm a bit more sharply spoken compared to the actual tutorial. So what I'm doing here is this was a render that really it had it a bit, you know, it went through this look and that look, and I usually go on Behance to get inspiration to kick things off, even if it's just for the primitives of the layout, and I saw these kind of lipsticks that someone had made, and I thought, okay, so I'm going to make that, I'm going to try and apply some nature to it. So what you're seeing now is just me in creating the first stage, and you will see it turn into that final image, and at this point I'm just playing around with the lights. I tend to set up the lights and the cameras and the overall composition pretty quickly. I think that depends on the render you're doing though. If you're doing something that's based on realism, it can be hard to do that, but when it's surreal art, which is stuff I lean towards more now, I tend to set up my background and my camera, and I'm definitely a very formatted artist, if that makes any sense. I like to be centered in space and keep things very neat. I never used to do that like I do now, but it's just something I've came to do a lot. And I think at this point I definitely decided to take the volume builder. I've become very obsessed with volume builder recently. Since I discovered it, it gave me a lot of creative freedom around things, and I think one thing I used to do with my art on the 3D side, which I've began to divert myself from and try to go away from, and it's kind of under the whole perfectionism thing, which is an absolute curse if you have it. If you don't have it, bravo. If you do, which you probably do, it's a good thing to get away from, and it's the proceduralism of it, it's the randomness, it's the slight, and that's why I work with noises a lot, is it's kind of a self-improvement thing on my part, because it allows you to do something that's kind of slightly unpredictable. And I find that with 3D art, there's no brush strokes there, and brush strokes, sometimes the bristles go places you don't want them to, but it works out. And you can see me here fiddling with the lights constantly, and I can't always do that in tutorials. I've got to be sharp. I can't just be like, oh, in fact, I'll move that there, I'll make that bigger, I'll do this, I'll do that. It's just, it doesn't exist. People want stuff fast. This recording was about 3 hours, and I've managed to cut it down hopefully to about 15 minutes. But back to the whole volume builder thing, is it allows me to work without setting up the camera here, moving this here, and changing this little bit of the node and changing that bit, and it starts to drive you nuts, and it burns out your creativity way quicker. So I just came off of a bit of a creative block. I didn't make a render for about a week, and I think it's also good to show my humanity on that front, to show that, look, I've just had a whole week where I've done nothing but send emails. You know, it's like I can't constantly upkeep that productivity of art, so when I'm coming back into that off of a nasty creative block, it's nice to fight it with something that gives me that unpredictability. And I don't want to say it's doing the work for me, but with volume builder at least it's giving me its own attitude, if that makes any sense. And of course you can see me here going through a million different noises and changing the sizes, and I definitely like this broken look where it kind of took out a clump in the middle, kind of like a bite rather than anything. I don't think it took me too long. I can actually see on the timeline here watching I've already edited the video and I'm kind of talking over it, and I can see on the timeline it's probably about 2 minutes until I get annoyed and make it darker. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about is styles and comfort zones, because I think it can be really hard to negate between what a style is and what a comfort zone is. And recently, if you've been looking at my Instagram feed, I've been trying to make a lot more colour in my renders, because I used to always make everything dark because I could be all edgy and say that's my personality, but it's you sit and you say to yourself, that's my style? Yeah, I always do things on black backgrounds, that's my style. And then you come to realize, actually no, that's a comfort zone, and I'm doing that because I'm afraid to do anything else. So I started to reach out to these kind of pastely washed out colours, because I'm not a fan of vibrant colours, I know that much, but I needed to make sure I'm not afraid to use a colour like you're seeing here. And it works a decent amount, but I think sometimes, especially when I'm coming off a creative block, I've got to listen to where my creativity immediately tries to go to, and that is a slightly darker tone of the image. And you can't ignore that forever. You definitely can't ignore where your creativity sits, because that's something you can't actually control and tell where to go. It's going to go where it wants to go. That's why some weeks I'm doing renders of trees, and some weeks I'm doing renders of statues, and whatever it is, your creativity is always kind of sitting on a different playing field, and you can't force it into one it's not. And that's something I've came to learn over a long time. I definitely found myself here playing a lot with the way I wanted the trees. I did notice here, so you can see I've got 2 trees on. I usually work with 2 trees in an Octane scatter. It helps break up and give it a bit more of a natural look. And I think usually towards the end of the render I add, okay, so here this is it going dark now, but towards the end of a render I usually add in a 3rd tree, one that's a bit more dense. This is actually just me trying the dark, but I think I turn it off again and then come back to it later. But yeah, this render went through it quite a bit, and to see something get art directed from an entirely different render. And what's good about that is when you take a render and it's maybe not, you get something that's still an amazing result. And that render performed really well on Instagram. It's got like 600 likes or something so far, and for something to start off completely different, it's definitely confident boosting, because I had this idea that you're seeing right now in my head, but I ended up with a different result. And sometimes acting on those ideas that you have, and this is actually perfect timing, because what I did here with the fern actually gave me an idea for another render, which I'm going to try and make after this video, and I'll probably try and record that too, because sometimes the art direction in itself, and you're messing with different things, and you don't see that level of curiosity in a tutorial. You don't see me putting in something just to see if it works or not, and it's usually about that. Is you can't plan out the idea. What you've got to do is get a seed, put the seed down and watch it grow. And that's how I ended up with the render I've got. And I think more often than not, we try to sit and plan out the whole fucking tree before we actually begin to climb it. And what you've got to do is put a seed down and climb with it, and or at least watch it grow. Maybe that's a better way to put it, because you can't plan out your whole tree to begin with. And I think planting the seed of scrolling down Behance and seeing some lipsticks and saying, okay, I like that shape, I'm gonna try and build something in that in my own way, and it ends up coming out as this stone, as someone described it, which I think is probably a better way to put it, that looked pretty awesome. And I think towards the end I did start, I think the actual stone, it went through marble, it went through wood, and it went through gold. I ended up closing out in marble. Here you can see me trying to put some grass on it to see if that works, to make just kind of some abstract stick. I like the whole small forest thing. I've spoken about this before, but there's just something I love about forests looking tiny, they look awesome. And this bit here where I turned off the cube and the volume builder went massive, that again gave me another idea I'm going to attempt. But at this point you can see me trying to make the cube a bit bigger and seeing where it goes, and I start turning it around a bunch until I eventually straighten it up, and I'm like, hold on. So I'm pumping the 90-degree parameters to make sure it's properly straight, and then from there I think I start building my final render, and I think this is where you see it start transforming appropriately. And then I start messing with the lighting, and I had this one light particular, you could maybe call him Bernie, because this dude changed the whole render. He made it so much better. And you'll see him in a second. It's this massive guy up above, and yeah, he really helps out. And there's we all, I think lighting something we all struggle with, and I think we're quite blessed with lighting in a way. on the 3D side of things. You gotta think lighting is a lot harder if you're doing traditional art, and that's where I definitely spawned from. I come from traditional art, and it's still something I probably see myself doing one day. It's just, it gives you a sense of relief. This kind of art doesn't, and we're very lucky with the results we can see from light, and the light in traditional art is fictional, and you've got to plan it out much better. We can see direct results as soon as we plan it down, and we go through this whole 3-point system. Photographers go through that here. There's Bernie right there, you can see what he does there. He just changes the whole thing, and it's a shame that I actually ditched the subsurface render again. That's kind of a comfort zone, I think, rather than call it style, call it a comfort zone. But you know, you look at this here and it looks brilliant. Reminds me of some kind of suite I used to get when I was younger out of R.S. McCall's. If you're British, you know what that shop is. And then you've probably, what can we call this guy? We call this guy Bill. Bill's big. He was big, and I put him on the background to kind of even out, because you can see on the left side of the image there it's slightly darker. And I think one thing to be particular about is to make sure that your lighting is quite even. You're not getting too many dark spots, but you're also getting your image highlighted. And you can see that I've got those two. I've got my key light off, so you're just getting lighter on the left side and the top, and that's because it's honestly, I wish I could explain it. I just think it looks better. That's what I'm going to say. I think it looks better. Of course, I'm popping in a VDB. I'm a bit obsessed with those at the minute. But I think if I was to put that rim light that you see on the left and the top all the way around, I just don't think it would hold the same. And I was doing that a lot on the artificial ecosystems. I just think it gives it a bit of a more natural appeal to it. But we definitely get obsessed with this whole 3-point thing. And I don't think you should be too afraid of putting in as many lights as you want, but also using one light, you know. I think as 3D artists we get so caught up in this functional system of doing things. It's like when you're a traditional artist, nobody comes and tells you, you hold your pencil like that, hold it like this is how you hold it, and you hold it like this, everything. You hold your pencil how you want to bloody hold it. And sometimes people, they have systems to how they create what they create in this world, and they will penalise you if you don't follow it. So if you don't have the same lighting setup every time, or if you're not using a key light, they seem kind of starstruck and confused, which is very odd. Here you can see me finally darkening the image, and I think as soon as I tried the grey in this kind of front-on composition, I knew it's what I wanted. So I started messing with the colours a bit, and then I eventually was like, no, I'm just going to try some different materials. And I think the gold, this was what initially, when I made it orange, it was, well, yellow, kind of made me think, gold would look nice. So I tried that, and then I very quickly tried the marble, and I definitely find what I like. But it's, you know, it's just about trying things out, and I think in a way this video is probably 30 times more helpful than a tutorial. And I need to give myself a break from trying to concoct tutorials every week, because it's just realistically not going to happen. And I don't want to produce tutorials that are completely washed out. I want to produce tutorials that you've not seen, and if you have seen it, it's my unique take on it. And I get a bit sick of trying to come up with something new all the time, and I want to watch this channel grow a lot. And I feel like if I can actually just kind of hit two birds with one stone and pull my general work function, if I can pull content out of that, and this is something you can just leave on while you're making a render, you know, it's not as interactive, and I think it's got the potential for people to watch it who are maybe into comic book art or photographers. You might not even be an artist. I think this is definitely more constructed for that, so as content you're probably going to see a lot more. And I think the whole art process thing is definitely quite handy. Maybe next time I'll try and talk a bit more about the actual on-screen thing, but it's nice to be myself a bit more and not be this kind of online tutor. And I recorded a bit of me letting the image render away. I think that's probably all I've got to say today. I won't say anything else besides check out my assets, and yeah, look forward to more of these videos. I think it's more natural, and I think more artists needs to show this kind of side of them. So I'll have some other tutorials coming out soon, but hopefully this will be a way for me to bring a lot more volume to the channel. And here's one last look at the amazing render. And I'll see you in the next video.